But I don't think everyone is necessarily to the mindset that we're just making a small tweak here and there. At the foundation basis, at the theoretical basis, we are really shattering some of the underlying assumptions beyond anything that we knew, as I said, behind the very structure of space-time itself.
All right. Studying the universe is, let's not forget, a little bit like a Rorschach test. We have a vast field, and what cosmology has developed a method for doing is reading traces of light from the universe, using that light to reconstruct what we can project of distances, age, and mass, and so on to build a theory. This is all very impressive, and I agree with George that this is it's impressive how far what we've been able to do. But let's not forget about the scale and the scope of it. So if we imagine that this whole tent is the universe, what we are testing and where we think we know what is going on, maybe we can argue over the size of it, but I would propose the size of this glass table in relation to the whole. This starts becoming problematic when you get sort of further away, when you're trying to understand what is going on at the outside of this glass table. The further out you get into this tent, the more dependent you become on a model to try to predict what is actually going on. I think we might get into a little bit what the latest findings are from James Webb in a moment, but basically this splits into two camps. So if you are one of those, maybe some of you have attended the festival before, you've seen skeptical, critical debates on cosmology. Cosmology in crisis is a recurring theme at this festival. You will take the latest readings from the James Webb, where galaxies are too bright and they're too big and they don't fit the model. It will say, okay, here's the smoking gun. Clearly something is amiss. My two panelists here are arguing perhaps more sensibly, you have to build on what's before, not throw the baby out with the bathwater. My own position on this, I'm a philosopher, I'm not a scientist, so I'm not entitled to judge, but I have made the argument here before that when you look at the foundations of physics, the scale and the scope, the problems go a lot deeper than just dark matter and dark energy. That the potential flaws in the model, or what we see now in terms of the findings from James Webb, may indicate that there is something deeper going on. But scientists are, of course, very reluctant to throw out the framework, because then it's much harder to do the work. So it's a little bit like we don't know, if you're driving and you only have one map, do you want to throw out the map you have, or do you want to try to adjust what you have with it? That's the situation I find cosmology in right now. So I would argue there is a need for a deeper or more radical rethink, but that is for the scientists also to work with.
Okay, great. So yeah, as you mentioned, I think George, you're probably my best panelist for this. You could give a little crash course on exactly what the James Webb, what we're talking about here. Is it things like atmospheres on planets that shouldn't be there, bright objects that are way too bright for where they are? What are the specifics that we're finding that could potentially, and we'll argue about it, be this potential smoking gun of the map itself should be burned up and start again? What are the specifics we're talking about?
Well, the one which worries me most, I'm just talking, is the occurrence of black holes and galaxies earlier than they ought to occur.
Right.
And one of the great things is, and that's, I should have mentioned that initially we didn't have theories of structure formation. We got our theories of structure formation, and they were remarkably successful, provided we have dark matter and dark energy. So I'm happy to say this is evidence that dark energy exists. They have to be there, even though we don't know what they are. But the James Webb Telescope issue is that given all of that, we are still getting stuff forming too early, and that's what we have to explain. Okay,
so the stuff too early. So I'll pin that one, but I want to bring this one to Claudia, because it does seem that there's going to be this question we're going to be battling back and forth of, when you find something like this, something's too early, shouldn't be there. How do you know that it's an exciting opportunity and not it's the universe telling you you're totally wrong from the start? How do you even decipher that?
So I think as a theorist, it's not, we explore new opportunities all the time. Some of them are really not necessarily even driven by those tensions in the first place, but by the simplicity of the assumptions of the underlying framework otherwise. And so we ask ourselves questions all the time. Now, when we see observations which already signals that there's a departure compared to the standard paradigm, then we're trying to understand whether we can connect the two. But I have to say, in response to this, I really love being here, because in my everyday life, I'm considered as being the controversial, and then here I'm considered as being too following the mainstream. We do, let me just say, in my research, we do go and revisit the foundation of the structure of space-time themselves. So going beyond that, and the level at which we really rework our underlying assumptions are very, very fundamental. I think that in the particular case of the Hubble tension, if I can answer your question, what's really quite remarkable is that those tensions are not going away. There's been other tensions in parallel, like the sigma 8 tension, for instance, which seems to be going away and has gone away a little bit, if it's the case, has been going away a little bit quicker than the Hubble tension. The Hubble tension, the remarkable aspect to that is that over many years now, it doesn't seem to be diluted. It seems to converge towards having more and more tension. And so that is in itself very interesting. Again, I don't think it's necessarily surprising, but it's extremely interesting.
Yeah, I think also in my question, I can bring this back to you, George. I'm also not a scientist, more of a philosopher, but at some point I get frustrated hearing the word dark assigned to anything at what point does it become a cop-out of, like, actually, if we're just calling all of it dark, we have no idea. Am I being too harsh here, or am I being too impatient, maybe, as someone who wants the answers?
No, we have to assume that it exists because it is demanded, and we're searching for it in many, many different ways. There are experiments, both in labs of various kinds, and also seeing for other traces of it in the sky. But I think what I want to say is, if we're going to question the model, there's two things we can question. One is the geometry, the other is the dynamics. And the dynamics, we could have different field equations for gravity, which Claudia comes in, or we could have different matter present there than what we had thought before. Now, the geometry, I've spent a lot of time looking at alternative geometries, and the standard model is spatially homogeneous, but maybe it isn't. And there's a very interesting paper coming out from a postdoc at Queen Mary with a test suggesting it is not spatially homogeneous. And then that has to be taken into account. In terms of the dynamics, lots of different field equations are being looked at by various people. But the most interesting one is the matter dynamics, and I spent some time talking with Martin Rees the other day about this, who understands far more about this than I do. And he says you must take into account shock waves and turbulence. And when you take those into account, he says there is no problem in terms of getting these things earlier. So,
is that dark turbulence then?
No, turbulence is complicated. It's a renowned problem in fluid dynamics, the way turbulence works. And that definitely has the possibility of causing things to collapse earlier than we had thought.
Yeah, Bjørn, if you want to jump in here, I'm really curious. This is, I think, an interesting distinction on geometry versus dynamics, because I'm curious if you, as a philosopher, think one of those is deeper or more contingent than the other. Somehow, in my mind, geometry feels deeper, but I might be off.
Yeah, more fundamental. So it might be helpful just to consider what we mean by Big Bang Theory is banded about with the same pace here, a standard model of cosmology,
right?
etc. It is not simply sort of one theory, one set of equations. You can think of it as a layered, it's like you can use the building analogy as blocks on top of each other. And if you look at what's really at the base, we are presuming certain things that we consider very basic, like Newton's laws of optics, how we can read light, understanding of light, stuff at the base. General relativity, Einstein's framework, would impact on the geometry question, right? Very much also close to the bottom of the tower, Then you have redshift and expansion, which is one of the key inferences that we discovered. The Hubble Telescope discovered what was interpreted as expansion of the universe is now pretty much accepted by all mainstream cosmologists that the universe is expanding. This became another layer. And then you have the cosmic microwave background discovery that then cemented the field into believing that Big Bang theory was the right, was right about this because I had predicted it, etc. When you come to the upper layers, and we're not going to name all of them here, but that's when you get into dark matter, dark energy, these things can be considered kind of upper blocks of the theory. Here I know there's a lot of work going on in different fields, that there are contenders for how to replace dark matter with variable gravity, for example. There are many scientists working on this in the upper blocks. What I find interesting is the resistance to go a little bit deeper and to rethink, because if you are rethinking one of the underlying blocks, you will be completely sidelined usually within physics, right?
So maybe I can comment to that, because in fact my work is very much on the foundations at the very, very bottom. We're not even using some of the models we contemplate, are not even using Einstein's theory of general relativity. And so it's not even that we can distinguish for some of the models their impact on a particular time in the universe or on the geometry versus on the dynamics. It really shatters all the foundations, and we really have to start all over again. It is challenging, and because it is so challenging, and because results that have been built for over 100 years cannot be simply exported to the way we think of it, it's really hard to then explain how, from the models that we're considering, we can explain the current observations. So a lot of the models we are at the moment, this is the situation. We're not yet, and so patience is required. We're not yet at the stage where we can come up with specific comparisons, but we need to let ourselves the freedom to explore those possibilities. But I don't think everyone is necessarily to the mindset that we're just making a small tweak here and there. At the foundation basis, at the theoretical basis, we are really shattering some of the underlying assumptions beyond anything that we knew. As I said, behind the very structure of space-time itself. However, we need to be able to fall back on our feet and explain how the models that we have, even if they shatter everything, fall back into a description which got away for so long to be as simple as what we think. It is not an accident the current cosmological paradigm is so successful. We can't just dismiss it. If it is so successful, it's because it has done a really good job at describing reality as far as we know. And so anything else need to do as good a job as that, and need to learn from the lessons of the current paradigm.
Yeah, but then you also come into, I understand you were self-identifying as one of those, you are within the physics field, like far out for the others. So it's like you are actually here now positioned as like the defender of the status quo, whereas you don't see yourself as like that in your actual work. Was that you were referring to?
So I think in my actual work.
Like, is your work controversial within cosmology?
My work is not based on the standard assumptions of the cosmological paradigm. And so it is challenging. Whether that means that I'm challenging the current paradigm, I don't know. I don't think it's black and white. I think we need to work with what we have. We have to work with information that we have and build from that.
Mm-hmm. If I could, with a sort of philosophy of science question here, to piggyback on that, how I want to make it clear what you're saying, if I'm understanding it correctly, that our previous models, we know they're incorrect, as all probably of our knowledge is, but that's what makes them successful, is because they're so good at finding where they fail and where.
So the notion of incorrectness or correctness is a little bit loaded, I would say. We know they're incomplete. That's. I don't think anyone is of the mind that the current paradigm is a complete paradigm. The very fact that we call it a paradigm is telling. So we know it is incomplete, and we know there's something more to uncover. The notion of dark elements, even the notion of inflation, a lot of the underlying assumption in how we even start the universe, I don't mean starting with the Big Bang, but the initial conditions for the universe, they are very simplistic. We know that, and we know that we just start by trying our best and build from that. Now, what is interesting, as I said, is the fact that where we know things are incomplete, that's where signs of tensions seem to be appearing. And so that in itself is very exciting.
I think there are two historical examples which may be helpful here. In 1917, Einstein made a static model of the universe because everybody knew the universe was static. That was just taken for granted. The problem was that Hubble came up with evidence of redshift, and the models didn't explain that. And it took 1929 for Friedman and Lemaitre and then Eddington to say, okay, maybe the universe is actually expanding. And but the whole community, all of the major figures, just assumed the universe was static, and then in face of the evidence they shifted. Now the second one was Hubble got the Hubble constant wrong by a factor of 2. And so you ended up with a model in which the age of star clusters was twice as much as the age of the universe. Now, this is the kind of consistency check which really does matter. And the problem was that Hubble had measured the Hubble constant wrong by a factor of 2, and it's a very complicated thing. You have a distance ladder where you go from nearby objects you can see to further and further ones. That was corrected in 1952, and all of a sudden it fitted together and the model became consistent. So this is just an example of the self-correction of the model as time passed.
Could you, George, give us, moving sort of into the next theme here, a potential smoking gun? If you think the findings that we've been talking about here don't amount to a smoking gun as you're describing from the static to this inflation model that we've been in for so long, if this is not it, what could we find? And could something like the James Webb Telescope show us something? Do you have any hypothetical examples that would cause you to be like, oh, inflation itself is as wrong as static was?
Well,
to continue watching this video, click the link in the top left or in the description below.
With a free trial, you can enjoy the full talk and thousands more.
Thank you for being part of the conversation.